What's happening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the advanced segment for the countdown this week. The only segment besides the weekly segment. We'll get to that later. Today we got a rather interesting menagerie of guests here. We got Juice, the new manager of Hangzhou.
My dad isn't in the background this time. Let's go.
Yep, we won't have any awkward interruptions. Anyone who knows Juice will know what he's talking about. Anyways, we got the manager of Easy Clap, Koodle.
And player. Don't forget.
Yep, and player. Finally, it only took basically everything in the world's sake to... it took a global pandemic and God knows what else to finally get an Easy Clap member on here. But we finally got one. And then we have... shoot. Which team are you on now? Newt. Took a second. We got KaiGo.
I heard.
Man, you were on like Hangzhou for so long, and
I'm a mega lol.
Are you trying to get on every team, man? What's the deal?
No, I don't think he's pulling a plasma yet.
Ooh.
We have a few intermediate players trying to follow in Plasma's footsteps, but I'll leave that discussion for Pooter next week. So this past weekend, getting into those matches, because there were some good matches, some bad matches, and some kind of okay matches. First match of the week was Newt versus Goats Only. Unsurprisingly, Newt won. There was one draw, though, so I will give Goats Only some credit there. Buffalo got player of the match, and Jazza got honorable mention. No surprise there.
Okay. The draw was like, cause Newt's like DM'd. That's not. It was not close. It really wasn't.
Yeah, from what I saw,
DM.
Goats Only. They like to run these off-meta strats aside from when they verse Easy Clap, because apparently they're just scared of Easy Clap. But they like to run these off-meta strats, but they don't quite understand when to swap off of them. So you're just sitting there awkwardly. Goats Only.
Oh, I thought they were just bad and didn't know what comps to run.
No, they run like weird strats normally, aside from like the Easy Clap and I think flushed matches where they just for some reason.
I think it's a wise decision to just troll on bad comps and lose on a bad comp instead of losing on May, because it's just unfun for both teams. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Goats Only was predicted to be, I think, bottom of the power rankings preseason, and they've unfortunately kind of lived up to that. Although Hangzhou up until now has been rivaling them for that bottom spot, although we'll get to that later as we get to the predictions, but I'll let Juice give his spiel of what he's going for. So,
What am I doing?
we'll talk about what you're doing with like how the rebuilding of Hangzhou is going a little
that's
bit.
gonna be fun.
But next match was probably the most entertaining for me personally. It was Flock versus Easy Clap. Now, it is worth noting that despite it going to a map 5 once Easy Clap swapped over to May, it was rather definitive like the second half of the series. But it was a good series nonetheless. I'm happy it went to map 5. Good game, long game. Player of the match was a Void pretty much unanimously, and Plasma and Cal actually got honorable mentions. Plasma played for, I think, like, what, 1 or 2 maps? Yeah, 2 maps.
1 or 2 maps. He did a serviceable job. He did good.
They took out Wannabe, who's like usually the sub, and they put in the starter.
Yeah, no. Cal's our secret hit scan starter. He has the 3 hit scans.
He's done that
Plasma
anyway.
Cal was just being nice and letting Wannabe play for a bit so he gets some playtime on the hit scan.
Plasma also made a very amazing edit, I have to say.
Yeah, that was a really funny video.
The star was obviously Yusuf in that video. It's great.
Yusuf is just he's a character. I love him, man. He's a good guy.
Where
do you start? Where do you start? Like, there's no negatives. There's only positive with that kid. Honestly.
Honestly, he should just like hire Plasma or someone as a full-time editor.
Yusuf for president in
2050 something. I don't know.
You should make a TikTok on that with the.
That is a TikTok moment.
No.
Moment.
Now, Yusuf, next person.
He is considerably younger than 36, but good luck with that.
It's close enough.
Listen, yeah, he has a TikTok with however many followers. He's good enough. Anyways, yeah. Cal subbed in, like, what, this is the second or third time now he subbed in his hit scan or whatever, and just, like, dominated?
Sometimes Cal wants to unrust his hit scan. I know it's really scary for the other teams, but sometimes we have to do it to them, and then Cal just rules. What are you gonna do? Get out hit scan by our secret.
Dude, the Flock thought it was over. They like trolled on Torb, and then you guys capped 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure they thought it was over. They're like, oh, Wannabe's gone, it's over.
No,
Wannabe was the weight, man. We took it off, and then Cal came out.
Lee moment.
Yeah, dude. What are you gonna do?
Entertaining match nonetheless. I definitely recommend rewatching that one, if any match. The next match of the week was honestly painful to watch. I I was recording and casting that one. That was Hangzhou versus Hanamura, and this was before Juice actually took over for the team. So they were.
Well, at the time I was manager. Well, when
Were
the
you?
game, when the game was happening, I was actually manager at the time.
Okay.
But it was very keyword unstable.
A lot of stuff that was out of your control happened leading up to that game, like the term trade kind of killed you guys.
Well, trade is a very kind word to put it, but two things I need to say about that match. One, I didn't feel like breaking a keyboard because I didn't have any control over that game, and they did a pretty solid speed run. Honestly, I gotta give it to them.
Yeah, Hanamura has actually looked much improved. They look like a pretty solid mid-table team right now.
Well,
Mid-table.
I think they are. I think they are.
Yep. Midway through my match,
yeah.
I was looking at advanced announcements. I was like, wait, what? They 3-0'd already? Did the other team forfeit or something? No, you just got speed run.
No. Yeah, unfortunately, they had Andrew on hit scan, and I will say, he had some nasty shots on Widow and McCree, but...
He is a very good player mechanically and systemically speaking.
He had one jump shot on Volskaya on their attack for Widow, where it was like the nastiest shot ever, and I happened to be spectating it, and I was really happy I caught it, because it was really nice.
Yeah,
But,
and I'm going to be honest, Bark losing their only good player is just going to be crippled for the rest of the season.
Yeah, now he's unflushed, and also suspended for the next couple of weeks, because he...
He's on
let's
flush?
just say...
Goats only.
He's talking about
no.
term. He's talking about term.
Oh,
not-
term, okay.
Oh, sorry, no, they had Andrew as well. Okay, their only good players are gone, so...
Yeah.
GG.
that's what. Okay.
Well, they're in the middle of rebuilding, so we'll have to wait and see what goes on with that. But as of last week, it was a mess. Also, Tiny Mal just kind of like boomed on the Pharah for Ilios, and yeah,
Wasn't Tiny Moo like a novice player last season, or am I thinking someone else?
All
no,
right,
he was on Newt Newt last season.
He was?
Yeah, he just was kind of like underappreciated because no one really paid attention to Newt Newt at that point. But
Was he
he's
signed like later in the season? Because I just don't remember him at all.
he was on like midway through, but I think him and Dart shared playtime,
Oh,
so
alright.
it was kind of like half and half.
It
He's-
was just kind of a blur last season in the
Yeah.
last half. So.
Yeah, that's fair. And then Bakanje actually got honorable mentions there. He subbed in for I think the last map or maybe the last two maps. I don't know, but he did pretty good too. They subbed in a few people during the last map. Didn't really change anything. They still first held. They first held I think twice. I don't know. It was fast. But looking forward to seeing what Hangzhou can muster up in the following weeks because they're honestly a brand new team. I mean, like they're the old Hangzhou of like that friend group of like Agreed, Jepek, Chuggy, Term is kind of like disbanded, at least in terms of being together on a team. So it's an entirely new ball game for you guys.
Can't wait to talk about that.
We'll
And
get there
Recto
for
about to leave, dude.
predictions.
Oh, poor Recto, dude.
And then yeah,
He, like,
right.
left. He left.
He's on Goats only now, so he's actually reunited with Term, I think. And last match of the week was also kind of a speed run. It was Flush versus Guangzhou. No surprises there. It was 3-0. Adbun got player of the match. From what I've heard, Adbun did not play, but I swear he played at least one map. I believe they swapped some people around. I hope he played, otherwise I just got trolled, but that's on them. And then Baz got honorable mention. No surprise there. He's known to be a primary shot caller for most teams he's on, so yeah. Not much to say there. Guangzhou has looked pretty weak in the past couple of weeks. I don't exactly know what it is, but
I
Yeah.
think Flushed is a very great team, but
yeah, Flush
They're,
is top
they're-
3 easily.
yeah. I mean, I'm good friends with their managers.
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
I'm just can't wait for them to watch that and just be like, okay, I can't wait. Can hear Zero in my head. Can hear Zero in my head go, okay, dude.
And they have a very extensive staff, it seems. Just looking at that.
They have like almost as many mental health coaches as they do players, I think. Or wait, did they have more?
The joke is getting funnier and funnier, man. The more they add, it's just I'm literally like tearing up every time I see the new announcement.
I laugh.
5, 6, 7, 8,
Every
9,
time,
10,
right?
11, 12, 13, 14. Jesus Christ. When did they get all these people? Okay, so they have more mental health coaches than players.
hmm
Wow.
It's
When did that
funnier by
happen?
the second. Just trust me.
Yeah. At a certain point.
Wait, I just got a very interesting DM.
Okay.
And I think it's very so Beast went in for me as main tank, and he just DM'd me. Just
Oh, the
took
Owl player?
Elios 2-0, doing well now. So
Oh,
I'm assuming
well.
Beast is on the main tank,
I
and
would
if
hope
that's
so.
true, I will look. I was starting myself right now, but I'm just gonna spoil the beans right now. I was gonna find a main tank next week just because hey, maybe I should give myself a shot. But if I'm playing bad, I will get rid of my ego and be like, all right, I need to find a kid who's more competent than me. A lot of my friends say that I am actually good at the video game, but I don't know. I just need more time.
You're good. It's just hard to match up against some of the people we have in advance, to be honest.
He replied back, dead ass. Thanks. Shout out to Beast. He's like,
Beast is kind of a beast though, not gonna lie. They named the Toronto Defiant Beast after this beast. I'm not even joking. Like it's fact.
I have no idea who this kid is. I'll be honest.
He was a free agent for a lot of. He wanted
actually
to go.
he was an intermediate player. And
He wanted to
promoted.
be intermediate. He was officially advanced. He wanted to go down to intermediate, but his peak was like 3.8 on Orisa during double shield meta. So it's like we can't just.
Wow,
bring
that's
him
crazy.
down.
But
Man.
the
That
rest
guy's
of-
cracked.
That's like 3 point.
3.8 on
Oh,
Orisa.
God.
Damn. Whoa.
Chill out, Guido. Chill out, Guido. Chill out. Chill
Yeah,
out,
definitely.
Chill out.
No,
Definitely.
KaiGo, that guy's so good. Holy shit.
No, I don't think anyone's
Okay, buddy.
hyping him up as like, he's the next Yusuf, but like he's actually performed pretty well the few times that he's like rang for advanced, because I think he rang for like flushed once and he did serviceable there. He rang for
What team did he play against, though, is my question?
Guangzhou?
Yeah, there's your answer. Alright.
They're both bad teams. Or wait, no, yeah.
Oh, bad team.
No,
That's
I'm
fair.
thinking of when he also rang for like Hanamura or Goats Only or something once, and like he did pretty good against a more equal opponent there as well. So like I think right now he has like 100% win rate for ringing. So,
Yeah, man, don't pick him up. Just let him ring around. It's fine.
yeah. But anyways, getting into the actual predictions, we got some potentially interesting matches, some probable sweeps, depending on how things shape up. There's a few teams that are kind of uncertain right now. I think Hangzhou is one of those. But speaking of which, the first match is actually Goats Only versus Hangzhou. And everyone here besides Juice thinks that Goats Only will probably take it, but there is potential there for Hangzhou to take some maps, possibly even take the win. Depends on how you guys rebuild. Goats Only isn't exactly the best team in the league, so like this is your chance. This is probably the easiest week you're gonna get for the next 4 weeks.
I'm gonna say something about tonight. If we win it, I'm just gonna DM term. Hey, so.
It's basically just whichever team is less bad. Okay, that's basically who's gonna win. Okay, so
Yeah, I think they're both like middle to bottom of the table teams, so it doesn't really matter.
they're both bottom tier.
Right now they are
I don't
7th
think-
and 8th.
Low key, I don't think any of the pickups are gonna make a difference because like the core is still the same, and they just sound like worse. Like, okay, I don't want to say that, but I don't want to point out specific players. But, like I feel like overall they like improved like in a certain area, but then they also decreased. How do you say it? Unimproved? I'm so retarded. Wait.
You'll find it, man. You'll find
Improved?
it.
How do I say it? Deproved?
Got worse, man. What?
Yeah, whatever. Got worse in one section. of the team.
Lacking.
Yeah, okay. They got worse in like one part of the team, and then they got better in one part of the team. So it's like it sort of evens out. So I feel like they haven't really
Thesaurus,
gotten
man.
better.
Like seriously, we can get you Thesaurus for the rest of the countdown.
If he's talking about Bark, I'm gonna take your advice.
No, I'm talking about like Goats Only.
Oh, I thought you were trashing my team, which is okay.
Your team does stink though, so well.
Okay, Dad.
Actually, interestingly enough, Goats Only does have 2 more active players now. That's like Tespa's been kind of cancelled because Early Bird and Matt now have like no Tespa, so they can actually commit time to Goats. So that much.
Wait,
is
when did
interesting.
Matt join Goats Only? What the fuck?
That was a while ago, like a couple of weeks, but I don't think he's been playing.
I've been looking at the advancing. It's still Matt is still the manager flush. I was like, what?
No, he's also on Goats
Oh,
Only.
that's Red Axe, dude. I'm stupid. Red Axe has named himself Big Boy Wing Matt. Okay.
Oh, of course he did.
All right, that makes sense.
But yeah, some potential there. I'm actually quite interested to see what Hangzhou can pull out. I think you guys might have a chance. From the sound of it, you guys are slowly improving. That's a good thing, I guess. It's better than having to rebuild and like, okay, we're just losing everything and this is terrible.
Yeah. But
Seems to always happen with one of the bottom table teams both seasons.
I mean, at least for once, it wasn't easy clap. Like,
yeah, for
at the
once.
very least. Actually, we haven't had a team fully explode yet. Fingers crossed, knock on wood.
We'll see. We'll see.
Please don't. We've had enough of that over the past 2 seasons.
No, we're going to do it in the finals, just to spite.
Just in the finals. Just have.
Just drop everyone.
We're gonna hopefully go flawless and then go 3-0, and then just before we win the last match, we're just gonna forfeit.
Just have Cal 1v6 on McCree.
Yep. We're give him 500% damage though.
Just give him max HP, damage reduction, all that.
We'll just do raid boss finals. It's fine.
No, just do 6v0.
6v0. Put in a hard Zarya bot.
Just try winning without me, and then yeah.
That is pretty hard, man.
It'll be a challenge, but yeah, I think you guys can do it.
Anyways, the second match of next week is going to be rather interesting as well. Two mid-table to possibly bottom-table teams, Hanamura versus Guangzhou, although I think Hanamura is more mid-table now. Most of us think that Hanamura will probably take it 3-1. Juice thinks Guangzhou has what it takes to take it in a map 5. So, why do you think Guangzhou can pull out that win, Juice?
Cause I opened the League 0 Season 2 schedule standings, and Guangzhou has 2 wins, and Hanamura has 2 wins, and Guangzhou is minus on map differential.
No, dude, Guangzhou got one of their wins was a forfeit against us. Like,
oh yeah, against Nudu, yeah.
So they should be like 1-5 right now, and
so I would probably, my only reason is luck.
Fair.
Hey man, you made a mistake.
To be fair, I should probably change it just because my team just took a map off of them in scrims. So maybe I am wrong. But I believe in them. I believe. Just hope. I've seen weirder things in sports.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen. Although Hanamura has been looking more stable as of late, so who knows?
Hanamura
they always ran meta to an okay degree, so
yeah.
We'll see.
They're not great, but they're not terrible anymore. Like, for the first couple of weeks, they just kind of burned themselves. Anyways, next match, this one could be exciting or rather messy. Newt is considered like upper to mid-table. Not quite top tier, but of course Easy Clap still undefeated. I'm fully expecting them at this point to just go 10-0. So myself and Juice think that Easy Clap will go 3-0. And obviously KaiGo and Koodle are on opposing sides of that match. So do either of you guys have any take on that game?
No, I think Nunit's gonna 3-0 us, honestly, man. It's a hot take.
I'm banned, so they still don't have a DPS player, so I don't know.
Do they not? Oh, am I gonna see the mythology DPS that I've heard about?
It's
basically.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, you guys are gonna lose. I'm sorry.
My only input is I have seen like some teams who are like kind of good, kind of bad, versus a team that's like obviously is literally amazing in every shape or form. But I could see Newt giving them, when I mean by trouble, I mean like it 3-1. They probably will mess up maybe a map, but that
I thought just looking at the roster, I didn't realize they had no DPS players. So I thought I'd be playing against the Buffalafo.
If Newt shows up, go again.
Yeah, if they had their proper roster, Nunu would bet you be a pretty good team because their support.
I think you would
literally just 2-3.
I think once playoffs come around, I think we were gonna dominate. Not low-key. Like,
you guys are gonna do better for sure. I still think we're gonna win, but like Buffalo's a crazy good player. Like just speaking from experience from last year.
Yeah.
Like he's gone like so many just 5K, 6Ks just in scrims and plays, dude. It's just crazy. The dude has the best mechanics I've ever seen, man. On Zen.
Isn't he also just like awkwardly quiet?
Dude. Okay, all flex supports are just weird, awkward people, man. I swear to God, they're all quiet, weird people.
Oh, I think it's hit scans. They are. I feel like hit scans of what they do.
No. Hit scans are either really loud or very quiet, and they don't talk.
I played with Term and Moby, and Term Term will say no words, and then Moby is also completely that. And
but I play with that. But dude, I'm a hit scan and I play with Wannabe. They're polar opposites, man.
Well, Wannabe's different because he's basically tier 2, and he is basically a prodigy. It's like an anime character.
Okay, dude, chill. Don't
Sorry, you don't need to start because you go that much, man. Okay, we get it.
Yeah.
He does
okay,
it enough
chill.
himself.
Yes, we get it, man. But yeah, I think Nunu has pretty good because I thought like because their support line's really good. I don't really. Mega Gust is okay, I think.
I just-
No, Megagas is pretty. He like boomed Ultra like, so.
Yeah,
he
but
boomed
Ultra's washed, man. I'm just gonna say it. Ultra still thinks we're playing in goats, man. That was his problem, right? For a while.
He wants the glory days back.
Yeah, he still thinks we're in goats. I'm not sure if he's fixed it. If he's fixed it, then it's good. If he hasn't, well.
I don't think Ultra's washed.
What team is Ultra on now? I forget.
Ultra was always. I've always thought Ultra was a really good Ryan, but then I started playing with better Ryan players. I'm sorry.
Akri, how do you not know that Ultra's unflushed? Like, there's an entire cult in League Zero who's been here for 3 years. Of course, he'd be unflushed.
That's pretty true. Yeah, I think Nunu. I think at best it'll be
there
3-1. I think at best we'll win
Yeah.
3-1 to them.
It's not a terrible team, but I mean it is easy clap, so it's going to be a tall order to.
If I see Mythology May, then I'm winning.
Probably
Yeah.
gonna see. So.
Yeah, probably gonna see it because that's what they've been forced to run for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, I was expecting Mythology Lucio and then Boof off of.
Oh, actually, I know how
Buffalo,
Nunu could beat you guys. Actually, I just remembered.
by having their proper roles.
No, if you guys go bunker and piss off Yusuf.
Oh yeah, that was funny. It only took one map though.
What's the bans for
Shoot, it's like.
Hog Sigma Doomfist Brig.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
wait.
Hog Sigma,
Then, no, we're not gonna have
Doomfist,
trouble. We're gonna we're gonna dismantle this new newts. I'm just saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think like Doomfist is the only thing that's partially.
I
or
think
guess
at
Brig,
best
maybe.
it's 3-1. I think at best it's 3-1
Yeah.
for you guys.
That's reasonable. And then the last match of the week, probably the only one that could go to a map 5 in my opinion, which is Flushed versus the Flock. Actually, I'm the only one who thinks the Flock can take it in the 3-2. I think it'll be close as long as both teams show up. And then everyone else thinks Flushed will take it. Who's that? KaiGo thinks 3-0, and then Kudel and Juice think that Flushed will take it in a map 5. So most of us think it'll be a close game.
Hey, I don't want to be that guy, but like, the Flock are just like straight bad. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I agree with you.
Flushed
Sorry, no, continue, my bad.
pretty stacked. Like they have like a really Anju and Swift are like both like 4.4k plus, and they just like they're both on the same role. So Flush is like yoinked two of the best flex supports in the entire league, and like they aren't showing any of them.
Who's the other one? Swift?
Swift,
Yeah.
yeah, he was on.
And Bambi's also 4.4. I'm pretty sure.
I feel like I can't really say anything about this matchup because they're all my friends. So. Because like,
I could see any
if I were
scoreline.
to shit talk them, I'm gonna get a DM from Jepic and Zira, and Jepic's just gonna be like, "Bro, come on," and Zira's just gonna be, it's just gonna be a paragraph.
I think I could see any scoreline in favor of Flushed, honestly.
Yeah.
I
I think it's fair.
I think it
Okay.
depends how hard Flush
You know
tries.
You know what? I will slightly roast them. I feel like Flushed. I feel like Flush can be good. It's just that like because it's like Zero management. I feel like Zero just like grabs all of his best friends, and then what
That's
usually
what it was though.
And then what
yeah.
usually happens is it's like okay, so the managers are Red X, Zero, and Jepic. So if I'm not mistaken, 2 of them are Childs, and one of them is literally a Canadian. So so right there, there's some problems. Honestly, they are skilled. They are very skilled. It's just that
Hey man, what's the Canadian part, man? I'm also Canadian. What's the
Canadian
deal?
part, they aren't real.
Okay.
Fuck.
That's such an old meme.
I'm out.
Yeah.
And now you have to move him back in.
All right. Yeah, honestly, I could see Flushed winning this, but I'm very cautious because these players, this friend group, does not have the best history against teams that have good coordination like the Flock does. I'm thinking back to last season's grand finals with essentially Chaz versus Crest, where like Crest had granted like, really talented players.
I can ask.
But, like,
Who do they usually?
Zero got upstart by Melton Core.
Who does Flush usually start?
Let's see. That would be.
Okay, so
Zero, burrito.
Zero, first problem. I'm sorry.
and then comes so I love Zero. He's really good at two
He's
heroes.
very energetic.
and-
He's really
and
energetic.
he has a lot of energy. He sadly
Hey.
likes Dallas.
God, you
But-
don't only.
I feel like
I'm sorry.
if there's one thing that I know about Flush, it's that they live and die by two things: friendship and energy. So
True.
if they start playing bad, they will start going at each other. And if they are well put together, I could see them winning this very easily.
Yeah,
Because
no,
I feel like Flush is very volatile.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I said I can see like any scoreline in the favor of Flush depending how hard they try. And also, I think Flock is just. I think they're gonna reach a peak and then they're just not gonna go past it because from last year working with Hawk, his coaching is very. Sometimes,
Rudimentary.
one thing that we always like to famous quote him is that his best coaching advice was sometimes you have to play passive and sometimes you have to play aggressive on right. And we're just like, thanks, man. That's some hella good advice, man.
Yeah, I don't coach. I don't know anything.
No,
I just go. I just say insert inspirational quote. Let's
all
go.
All the ex Crest players are all just like kind of. Hawk's just a meme to us. He's kind of a joke, honestly. So, if Hawk does any coaching, and I've heard some leaks from people I know, and they're just like, he hasn't changed. He's still the same. He's just not gonna. He was really good with really basic coaching, but then after that, you don't get anything else from that.
So right now we're just trashing Hawk, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I mean, the players did that last.
I didn't say anything, Hawk.
I did.
Koodle did. Yeah, but I don't think that changed much from last season. I think you guys did that during the press conference last season too for Crest.
Oh yeah, we did. Okay, I already did it. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, just repeating yourself at this point. Yeah, but yeah, if my big fear with Flushed is if they start losing momentum, I don't know if they can bring it back because they're such mentality and momentum driven players. So
I can see that. Yeah, I can see Flock taking it if they take one or two maps first.
No, Flush won't even lose momentum in the first place because Flock are straight bad. Like
That's true.
The only reason why people like think they're so good is because they're like 5-1, what legends, right? But look, if you look at their schedule, they had like the easiest first 5 games in the entire world.
That's true.
Like,
they did just run meta into shit teams and just take free wins.
Clark first, who are like I was banned, and then also like we got little pants to fill.
Oh,
and then,
yeah.
And I played.
Ooh, you don't win those. You don't win those, KaiGo. You don't win those.
And then they play against like a bunch of other shit teams. Like they have the easiest run ever. So like I don't know. It's like
I feel like Flock is like, I don't know, like I could use my favorite sport of all time, but I won't say it because people will get mad. But I do 100% agree with it. They just go meta and they just go low run into them. Like, they're probably bad, and then they win. It's
No,
like,
seriously, like they run meta. They just run the characters. I don't think they run it.
I feel like they're just cut. I feel like this is in the term where it's like they just keep it basic. They just run into the team.
It's like giving meta characters to Masters players. They play the characters, but they don't know how to work together with it. You know.
I think that's a fair assessment. In all honesty, they kind of ride off of a lot of the synergy they have.
But they do have a good flex support. I'll give them that.
Yeah, actually, 2 good flex supports if Meek shows up.
That's true. I think it'd be better if they trend both of their flex supports. Honestly.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got for all the matches. Unless you guys have more comments.
I can't think right now.
All right, well, Juice, now's the time, if any, if you want to give your
Oh, yeah.
motivational speech.
Actually, you guys go first because mine's gonna be long as hell.
All right, so Koodle, KaiGo, do you guys have any closing statements?
I'm gonna say it again. Just if you guys are gonna lose anyway, just don't play Mei, so we can just have fun while you guys lose playing fun characters, and we can have fun winning with good characters.
It's just I feel like I can speak for all players. Like I find it cringe that like you guys like, oh, we're not gonna play Mei at all, and then like once it like gets kind of close and you're about to lose, you play Mei. It's like it's just a bit cringe, you know. Like if you're gonna say you're not gonna play Mei, just don't play it at all. Like dude, like. If you really don't care about winning or losing, because this is like a troll league for you guys, then don't play Mei at all, right? Like it's kind of cringe if you guys are like, oh, we're gonna BM, and then once it gets close, we're gonna play Mei. That's kind of cringe. Not gonna lie.
I can tell you know wannabe, because he calls everyone cringe.
It is mostly just wannabe calling everyone cringe. I don't like Mei. I just think Mei's a really stupid hero, right? But if you run it, it's kind of stupid.
Does
But,
Wannabe ever
if we
chat
have to
that?
as
And you
well,
don't run it. You don't run it. It's only like a troll league for you guys, really. It's like if everyone else is trying to win, then like.
okay, but KaiGo. The thing is, even if we just do let you guys win running May characters, people are gonna get egos. Like the shit teams are gonna get egos for beating us on May, right? And that's
Why do you care though? If this is like a troll league to you guys, why do you care? Like this clearly isn't any like. You guys really don't care about this league, right?
We still don't like losing the shitters, is what we're saying.
Yeah,
Not really-
it's kind of
you're not
hard
playing
to describe their mentality, but after you know them for long enough, you kind of understand where they're coming from.
It's hard to describe their mentality. It's pretty obvious. It's literally. How many players do you have on your team?
What, Easy
And?
Pop?
Yeah, easy clap.
11.
11, I think.
Okay, so you guys have 10 players plus plasma, and what you do. so what you do is you grab a bunch of really high, amazing players, and you put them on the one team, and they all beforehand of the season said, "Let's just roll through this tournament," and then sometimes sometimes in game people go, "Lol, wanna be 12, cringe XD,"
Well,
and then
because Wannabe's a lot younger, he's really easier to piss off and then also he calls people cringe a lot easier.
I mean, when you probably get to know him, he's probably a really nice guy.
He's a super fucking talented player, but
I'm gonna beat him up in real life.
He is. And
KaiGo, do you know him in real life?
Yeah. Yeah, when KaiGo was getting accusated by God knows
Oh
who,
yeah, no, that
one of you was
dumb
like,
shit.
"No,
I
he's not.
remember.
I'd beat him up in real life." I remember that. Yep.
Was it Little Paz that accusated you?
Speaking of
You
real
were
life,
180?
I forget who.
Speaking of
What's
real
up?
life, hey Akri, I still have the DM from your friend that
You
were
figured
with
it out.
Yeah,
That was so
no,
funny.
I remember it. No, because I was looking through my thing. I'm like, who is this? Who is
Yep.
this guy who DM'd me
Yep.
on where is it? I remember.
Oh god, that was hilarious. Cause he was just like standing right beside me as you came up, and as you walked away, he's like, "Who's that on Discord?"
If people are not, if people don't know what we're talking about, at the Philly
Grand Finals.
Philly Grand Finals, Akri was like, "Yo, if anyone wants to come," and I'm like, "Oh wait, oh, fuck it, I'll come." And I get DM this text message when I was near Akri. He
Yeah.
DMs me. He goes, "Y'all fat dude, no offense, JK, y'all cool." And I go, "Who are you?" Kid goes, "The weird bearded guy next to Akri." And I
Oh,
go,
he did
well.
tell you. Okay, that's hilarious. Cause yeah, that's my best friend. He was just trolling, but I thought he didn't tell you, so I thought it was just like forever a mystery. Oh,
Akri
that was
is
funny.
probably like Fitz, but if Fitz never worked out and was really white. That's what Akri looks like.
Yes, I am very Irish.
Isn't Fitz already really white?
No, Fitz is like a little tan.
Oh.
Akri's like inside white.
Yeah, yeah. My heritage shows I'm extremely Irish. Anyways, if you want to give your spiel, Juice, now's the time.
Yeah, time to stand up. Here we go. Okay, so I need to first preface this by saying, in the beginning of the season, I wanted to be manager of a team called Z9, in which I held the rights to. And I'm not going to leak Akri's DMs, but basically, when I didn't get it, I was pretty sad knowing that I didn't get it because I was like, what did I do wrong? And then what I did was, of course, I called Akri on my phone, and I was like a moron, where I had like me recording a shirt, and I go like, and I was really desperate because at the time I was like really sad about everything, and I was like, what the fuck? And he basically said it was close, but like it was because I couldn't hold on my players. But personally, I feel like I was kind of unlucky because my players are, you know. You would know the context if you were on the season 0, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But the main takeaway was that for me was I need to prove these. Can I curse?
Not
We're in League
not
0,
like
man.
the
People
terror.
talk
Not like, don't drop like the N-word, but
No. I would never say such a thing. I would never say such a thing. But no.
KaiGo would.
I was like, fuck. I don't know what to do. So I was really sad, and I wanted to get picked up by a team, but like obviously I'm like 3.4. Like no one's gonna fucking pick me up. I'm shit. Luckily, some team did pick me up, and it was Bark. And I was actually supposed to go to Flush and be co-manager of that. But in the grand scheme of things, I think I'm glad that I picked up. Well, not yet. I don't know. happy about this. But so during the year, Recto was kind of AFK, and then he.
Oh, I
left.
gotta get fat pissed, dude. Let's get this fast over this.
This is you can literally leave. I will be here forever. I'll tell you what you should do.
Okay,
I
I'm
want
gonna
to
go.
finish fine. So basically,
I'm gonna go too then.
Okay.
Recto, I mean, I've done this before, so I don't really care. But basically, what happened was when I went through, what I was the backup, and Agreed got banned for saying some dumb shit, and I had to start for 2 games. So what I had to do was I had to practice with the team, and in the scrims, Agreed was doing. We had a really rocky start. We couldn't get any wins. We couldn't even get any scrim wins, and it was bad. And because Agreed was banned, like I wasn't getting that much start time. So because it was Agreed. So as we went on, after the 2 games, I played like horse shit, and obviously in games, and I didn't get that much scrim shine. Then I was perma benched, and then fast forward 4 weeks, Jepic is not having a fun time managing, and then Agreed DMs me one day. He's like, "Hey, can I Hey, do you want to be the manager of the team?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I do." Should have said no.
Should have said.
To be honest, being manager is there's a lot of roles. You have to be the leader. You have to establish your players. You have to talk to them. Like you can't like honestly, I'm kind of a laid back guy, and everyone I'd say all my friends said I'm a good manager and said I got cucked, but it's whatever, it's fine. It happens, but this is my time to step up and actually really try, and especially that it's Hangzhou Bark, and like after the game that we played against Hanamura Shot, everyone left. Everyone gave up. They wanted to leave. It was the team. This team was doing really bad, and no one really cared. So and of course I was in this scenario, and I just said, I kind of just have to just do a reset. And I think I made fun of a guy for doing that type of shit. And I see what his placement is now. And this Hangzhou Bark role that I like, this manager, if personally, I don't really like it, but look, this job, when you're a manager, you have to keep your head up. I honestly, if I was any other person, I would have just said, "Fuck this." I'd rather just go and play like Minecraft or whatever. But I wanted to stay with the team for 2 main reasons, and one was basically because if I leave, that's gonna look awful for next year for trying to become manager, and I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to give up on the players. I didn't want to give up on YOLO. I didn't want to give up on Chuggy. I didn't want to give up on anyone else I was forgetting. So I had to do a rebuild. So I signed Beast. We got Moby out of it. And right now, Moby, he's quiet, but I like him. He's pretty good at playing. We picked up. We have a few people trialing. Vibes we picked up before all this shit hit the fan, and I picked up North. He doesn't have his computer yet, but he's gonna come back. And I think my redeeming qualities of this is like, look, I don't think anyone in the world would ever take this job, but someone's got to do it, and I think that someone is me. I personally think that it was kind of my job, because like I need to prove to myself, because obviously the managers, the fact that they even were not even considering me, and even if it was close, shows that I'm not even close to being good. Even I don't care if my friends say I'm good. I can only get better. I need to get better. I need to get better at everything. I can't just let what happened last year ruin my reputation. So I want to do a restart, and I want to thank a lot of people in the bar. Agreed. Besides when I dropped Acid, because he was my best friend, that was probably the hardest decision I've ever made in terms of managing, because Agreed, when you're on Bark, you live and die by Agreed. It's like Brett Favre, and if you knew anything about football, that guy can fucking ball, but goddamn can he fucking throw away games. And not only that, but Agreed has energy. Agreed is so nice, and I've never felt more shit in my life than dropping him. And I know a lot of other people are like, dude, he's not good. And I don't. He's young. I think with time will tell. He will get better.
Yeah.
And he just needs more team. I don't care what people say. I think all people can be good and all people can change and get better. I really think I agree because he really helped me in that beginning, and I think he really opened my eyes because I needed to stop being a little bitch, and I really thanked him. Managing is really hard, I personally think. Obviously, this league is supposed to be fun. Am I having fun? I think I'm going to start having fun, and that's the main goal. It's just to get to a point where if my team's having fun, then I can just sit there and just be happy, honestly. But right now, if I'm starting myself and I even if if Beast told me it's true that they're rolling, I will give up my starting spot. I will do anything it takes to make this team good and to prove people wrong. I really want to prove to myself that I can be a good manager. I will do anything for it, honestly. But last thing I want to say is two things. Sorry if you're watching this, you probably don't.
There's timestamps they can see.
I want to get this off my chest because I hope most of my friends listen to this, and I hope that they really be like, damn, I want to be like him and just like the mentality, like that, like knowing that right now it's down, shit will get better as long as you just work hard. That's what I think. So my last thing I want to say is God, I don't even know. I just like
take your time. We got
I'm gonna try to
timestamps and stuff.
Yeah, no. I don't think I would really do this without my friends. I don't think, because I honestly I'm really not that good at this game. Honestly, like a lot of people say I'm good. I know Gag. I know Zero. I know Epic. I just want to prove. I need to play comp more. And I just want to get better. Like I don't want to be seen in my friends as a shitta. Like honestly, that's the worst. That's the worst fucking. I know you're laughing right now, but I just don't want to be looking at shitta. And another thing that has also really helped me is Yusuf's TikTok. You gotta follow Yusuf on fucking TikTok right now. If you don't follow Yusuf on fucking TikTok right now, okay.
I was gonna say respect you, and then I was like, okay, dude, hell no.
No, but I mean, aside, I really can't thank all my friends enough, and I can't thank Agreed for giving me the opportunity to become manager, and I really can't thank the other managers who've try and help me with all this shit, like Sierra. And look, when it comes down to, we're all friends, and I really can't say thanks enough. I'm gonna be repetitive, so we're gonna call it here.
All right. Well, thank you guys for showing up and all that. Thank you, KaiGo, for sticking through that, I guess. Yeah, tune in for the weekly segments if you want an analysis on what teams can make the playoffs, minus Novice, because I think we're taking all 6 teams to the playoffs. I don't know. Anyways, that's all we got, so see you at the weekly segment. What's happening, ladies and gentlemen of League Zero? Akinator here, and welcome to the weekly segment for this week. I believe it's week, 7th or 8th? I don't know. I've lost track at this point. Anyways, we got something a little bit different for you this week because we are rather deep into the season. Advanced just finished their 6th game, and Novice and Intermediate just finished their 7th games. So we're getting close to that playoff grind. So I wanted to take this segment to give a little bit of a debriefing on exactly how the playoffs are going to work. I don't know if it'll be officially announced up until this point, or if this will be the announcement itself, and we'll, for anyone who's watching it at least, we'll know how the playoffs will work. Staff has a pretty good idea of what we want at the time of recording this. I'm sure by the time, well, I guess 2 days from now, as of recording this on Friday, you'll at least know what we're planning on doing for the playoffs. So I'm going to be going through each division separately, including Intermediate A and B separately, and I will have timestamps in the pinned comment as always, but I will have 4 separate timestamps for the weekly segment just because it's going to be taking a little bit longer to go through each individual division. However, Novice is going to be a little bit faster just because of how the playoffs are going to work. So with that being said, we'll dive straight into Novice, because I'm just going to go from the bottom to the top in terms of SR. Not counting Intermediate, although I guess you could make the argument that Intermediate B is a higher SR. But getting to Novice. Now, by popular demand, we are likely going to take all 6 teams for Novice into the playoffs and just do what we did last season, Season 1, where we took the top 2 teams and they have a bye week, and then the bottom 4 teams face each other. The 6th place team faces the 3rd place team, and then the 4th and 5th place teams versus each other, and then the 1st place team chooses who they want to face for the semifinals. Mostly everyone wanted to do that as opposed to just taking the top 4 teams. Mostly everyone meaning everyone that we've talked to in the Novice team management chat. I believe it was like everyone but one team wanted to do the all 6 make it, which does mean that we do have the potential for another Season 1 Plat Chat-esque run with Rio if they decide to just really start trying at the last second. But even with that, the other possibility that staff was throwing around was just taking the top 4 and having semifinals and into the grand finals. So with that, there's a little bit of analysis that can be had in terms of like how teams could hypothetically make that top 4 spot, because it is rather interesting, especially with Rio, which you'll see the graphics on screen, and I really couldn't think of a nice and clean way to present these graphics while getting all the information across, so instead you're just going to see my spreadsheets. It's relatively simple to understand as long as you can see all the information, which I have listed out here. So on the far right, you see far left, you see the current standings, and then you see the upcoming schedule, 2 varying forms of predictions for most of these versions of predictions, version 1 and version 2. They'll just be like what I actually think is going to happen, and the approximate scoreline versus like the exact reverse as if the opposing team actually won. But for Novice, I have something a little bit different because there's an interesting scenario playing out here. Now, in terms of the top 4, this does happen a few times in the other divisions as well, in terms of staying locked in for playoffs, but Wisdom is actually locked into the top 4. They could literally throw the next 3 weeks worth of games, and they'd still be in the top 4. Now granted, don't throw because that's against the league rules, and of course you do want to keep that number 1 seed, or at the very least number 2 seed if things go awry in the next couple of weeks and they lose like 2 or 3 of the games. They do have the potential of losing their 1st place spot, but obviously they're going to want to try and keep that so they can have the better hand in terms of choosing their opponents, getting potentially the easier route to the grand finals, which I mean they've earned if they get the 1st place spot in the regular season. So as you can see, Wisdom is locked into the top 4 at the very least. However, they aren't locked into their 1st place or even locked into 2nd and top 2 because the other teams can actually come up and depose them. Actually, realistically, only One Trick Wonders can come up and depose them. Wisdom can really only fall to 3rd place at the lowest just because of their match differential. It's not even about map differential because the highest score that Plat Chat can get is 6 and 4. So at the worst, Wisdom can get 7 and 3, and that's really how I went about deciphering like who could be locked into playoffs and who isn't. And there are 2 other cases of that in, I believe, Intermediate B and then Advanced, which you guys could probably guess before I even get to those segments who those are. But looking into exactly how some of these teams will remain in their spots or even get up to the top of the standings, well maybe not top of the standings for some of the ones towards the bottom like Hyperflex and Rio, but Geometric, they really just have to win like a single game in order to stay in that top 4 slot, so they can at the very least have a good running, potentially get matched up against a weaker opponent even if they can't stay in the top 2, which if you look at my my actual predictions, I'm expecting One Trick Wonders to overtake them just because Geometric hasn't looked the greatest in the past couple of weeks. Granted, they did face some rather tough opponents, plus some of their opponents coming up that may have looked weaker earlier in the season are now looking incredibly strong, so I'll get to that in a little bit. in terms of One Trick Wonders, really the main thing they need to do in order to secure their spot in the top 4 is to just beat Hyperflex, because that's really the one team that they really haven't faced yet that can bump them out of the top 4 if everything just goes wrong for them for the rest of the season. Granted, I don't expect that to be the case because they've been a rather strong contender, whereas Hyperflex is sort of in a mixed bag right now. They don't really know what's happening with them on a week-by-week basis. So, and then we get to Hyperflex. The bottom 2 for Novice is actually rather interesting, because Hyperflex, they basically have to win for the rest of the season to have a chance at getting into the top 4, and even then you need some teams to lose as well, although there's so many possibilities there, and you will notice that I'm not going over every single permutation that could possibly happen, because there's way more possibilities and timelines, if you will, than what I could feasibly come up with and present here, at least in an organized manner. But these are like the most likely scenarios in a way. And then you get to Rio, which it took me a while. For a while I thought they were in fact out of the playoff run, and I'd imagine most people would think that too, as they're 0-7 right now with a negative 18 differential. Yeah, so believe it or not, there is at least one future where Rio makes it into the top 4. And you can see it listed on screen. So first and foremost, and this is one of the harder parts, is they have to win all 3 of their remaining matches 3-0. And 3-0 is absolutely crucial. They cannot drop a map. And I will get to that a little bit later on. So on top of that, they need Hyperflex and Platchat to lose all of their matches for the rest of the season. Now, the good part is that Hyperflex and Platchat just faced each other their past games, so they don't have to worry. So Rio doesn't have to worry about one of those teams getting a win because they versed each other. That's already done. So those 2 teams actually feasibly can lose all 3 of their remaining games. Now, technically, Hyperflex can win one of those games, but it gets a lot more complicated with map differentials, and also a lot less likely with map differentials if Hyperflex actually wins, because in all likelihood they will. Assuming everything else in this scenario happens and Hyperflex actually manages to win a match, then they would actually take the 4th spot. And here's the part that's kind of a kicker, is Platchat not only has to lose every single match, but they have to lose every single match 0-3, which is kind of a tall order considering they just beat out One Trick Wonders, who, in my opinion, is probably the 2nd best team. Maybe Platchat's going to be one of the better teams as well. I mean, I think they're versing Wisdom. Yeah, they're versing Wisdom week 10, so I guess, or game 10, so I guess we will get to see how good they might be in that case. So, with that extremely specific scenario, I'll go over exactly why that is the case. So you can see my predictions version 1 in the column in the graph in the middle. Actually in the middle of that graph as well. That's approximately the scorelines and the victors of those games that I'm thinking is going to happen. I didn't even realize it until I had done out the chart directly to the right, which is my predicted final standings, that apparently I don't have Geometric winning for the rest of the season. But I mean, when you look at their opponents, they have, Platchat, who's looked rather strong. They beat out One Trick Wonders, who also beat out Geometric in the first half of the season. They have Wisdom, which, I mean, I'm expecting them to go undefeated, and I don't think that's too unrealistic at this point. However, I do think it'll be a close match. And then OTW did beat Geometric, and they're still looking pretty good. Like, despite their recent loss, they're still looking good. I don't expect them to really lose out to Geometric. So, as you can see in the standings, I'm expecting Wisdom to go 10-0, and I'm expecting Rio to go 0-10. I just don't see them pulling out a win at this point in the season. Like, maybe, possibly, they did take Wisdom to a map 5, which is really impressive, but then they also got reverse swept, and I don't think, in all likelihood, Wisdom was taking the first 2 maps seriously from what I've heard and from the little bit I've seen. I don't watch all of Novice if I don't happen to host those games. I do expect Hyperflex to also stay pretty much towards the bottom as well. I could see them taking on Rio in the last week and actually winning, realistically, because I just don't see Rio improving that much unless they really surprise me. I'd love to see every single team in the league get at least 1 win and 1 loss, because as staff that tells me that we did good, you know, to allow for that sort of scenario to happen. I believe I even said that in like a couple of weeks ago on the countdown for Advanced. And I am expecting Platchat and Geometric to be right about in the middle of the pack, you know, 5-5. Geometric will have definitely a better map differential because of their first, 3-4 weeks? yeah, three, I don't know, the first couple weeks where they just completely dominated, and they were the top team in the standings for a while because of their map differential until they faced One Trick Wonders and Wisdom, and that kind of ruined those plans. One Trick Wonders, I'm expecting them to win pretty much everything aside from, actually, yeah, I actually do have them winning the next 3 weeks, so I'm just expecting them to shoot back up. However, I do think a lot of those games are potentially losable, or not a lot of those, but the Geo game I think is particularly losable if Hyperflex really comes out and just takes their game to a next level. I could possibly see them beating out One Trick. But yeah, that's kind of self-explanatory. I don't think that's too far off. Maybe swap Geometric and One Trick. Maybe even swap Platchat. I mean, Platchat would have to... The best they can do is 6 and 4, so that wouldn't really put them too high up in terms of match differential, depending on where the rest of these teams lie. But really, anyone in the current top 4, I could see swapping around a little bit. Aside from maybe like Wisdom, I'm just fully expecting them to go 10-0 at this point. Now, going into the fun part for Novice is the second predictions. Now, like I said earlier, in the other divisions that you'll see, if you decide to watch those breakdowns of like who will actually make the playoffs instead of just the top 4, those are generally going to be like reversed. So whoever won that match, whoever I think is actually going to win that match, I'm going to give a scenario where the other team might win. It might not be the same map differential or whatever. However, in this case, the Rio scenario, as I'm calling it, their one light at the end of the tunnel, was too tantalizing for me to ignore. So I basically recreated the entire scenario of what has to happen in order for Rio to actually make the top 4 by the end of the season. So basically Rio, thankfully enough, they do face both Platchat and Hyperflex, so they can contribute to both 3-0ing, like getting 2 of their 3 games 3-0, but then also contributing to those 3-0 losses that they need Platchat and Hyperflex to take as well, especially Platchat. Like, if they can win the Platchat game 3-0, that's just about as much as they can possibly do for the remainder of the season to get in the top 4. Granted, the top 4 doesn't really matter that much because we're probably taking all 6, but you know what I mean. Just sort of a status thing to say, hey, they actually came back and might actually be riding the momentum to a decent playoff run. But yeah, you could see for yourself. And if you look over to the version 2 final standings, over on the right side of the screen, you can see exactly why Platchat needs to lose 3-0 and Rio needs to win 3-0, and they can't drop a map. And that's because of the map differential. Also the head-to-head differential. Technically, if Rio drops one map, but it's not dropped to Platchat, say they drop a map to like Hyperflex and they win 3-1, right, and they're both -10, well, technically at that point, Platchat and Rio will have the same head-to-head differential because they'll have the same match differential, 3-7, they'll have the same map differential, -10, and then the head-to-head, they'll have both 3-0'd each other in the 2 halves of the season, in which case, we would probably have to have them, I believe the rules say we pit them against each other in a single control map. I'm not entirely sure which map that would be, possibly Oasis, because that's our standard tiebreaker for the regular season. And then the winner of that map would stand to gain standings in the regular season. However, ironically, I don't think it would really matter, because if they are in 4th and 5th place respectively, you know, if Rio does manage to climb up past Hyperflex in that scenario, they would both be facing each other in the quarterfinals anyway, so I'm not even sure if we would care to do the control map now that I'm thinking about it. But either way, that is really the main scenario, the most realistic scenario where Rio can actually make it to the top 4. Not that it really matters. I don't think it's not possible for them to climb up to anything past number 4 in the standings. And ultimately, I think Platchat is going to be ramping up as the season goes on. I mean, they did beat One Trick Wonders, and that's rather impressive. So, anyways, that's all I've got for Novice. Tune in for Intermediate A next. So, moving over into Intermediate A, and this is going to be the start of where the teams are actually going to have something at stake instead of just standings going into the playoffs, because Intermediate and Advanced will actually have teams that won't make the playoffs. For both Intermediates, we're taking the top 4 out of each subdivision, and Advanced gets a little bit more confusing at times, but we'll get to that later on. So for Intermediate A, for the most part, you can see the current standings over in the far left again. It's the same layout for every single one. Papega Parrots and Vitalize are currently in a really good spot in terms of being 5 and 5. Like, that's just about as good as you can possibly get. Now, there is the potential to drop out of the top, yeah, there is actually the potential to drop out of the top 4 in this case, and actually drop out of playoff contention, just because, well, DKE can't depose anyone themselves, but Botburgers actually can. And DKE, depending on how matches play out, DKE actually does have the possibility, in terms of map differential, to tie in terms of match differential, and then have a better map differential, but that would require them to basically win out 3-0 for the remainder of the season to even have a chance at that. And, you know, of course the best they can do is 4-6, which isn't the best record. Realistically, at this point, if you can get 6 wins on the board, you're basically locked up for the playoffs, which is why you could see on the bottom left-hand corner, you can see how to make playoffs and all those conditions. And Pega and Vitalize basically just need to win one game. CDC and Double Cap also really just have to win one game to put themselves in a really good position, especially if they can beat Botburgers in their match. Like, they could win just that game and lose the other 2, and they're still going to be in a really good spot, just because it's going to be really difficult for Botburgers to come back from that, as well as that implying that Botburgers loses 2 games, and that's basically their win condition at this point. So, in the meantime, realistically, I'm not actually expecting the rankings to change up at all. Realistically, Papega's looked pretty decent. I don't think they're going to be able to compete with some of the better teams in Intermediate B by the time playoffs come around. However, they will probably have a higher tier standing in their own division, meaning that they probably will face a weaker team in Intermediate B and actually have a chance to move on to the semifinals. Same thing with Vitalize. I think Vitalize has actually been a dark horse pretty much all season. I thought they were pretty darn good going into the season. I think a lot of people overlooked them, and I think they have a serious potential to possibly steal away first place in terms of Intermediate A from Papega, depending on how Papega performs. They're a weird team in terms of mentality. Like, if they don't feel like they have a chance of winning to start, they just don't try. I mean, like, they'll try, obviously, but it's sloppy, it's disorganized, they don't really come in with a plan. And I think that kind of shows when they didn't have chicken for those few matches where they just, like, lost these games that they really had no business losing. And in the meantime, you do have CDC, who just kind of, like, fell apart in some ways. I mean, they lost... Who did they lose? Like, Vantage, Shim, Reborn, I think he might have left. I don't remember. They lost quite a few good players, especially Vantage. I think he's probably one of the better flex DPS, at the very least in Intermediate A. It's hard to compare to some of the better DPS in Intermediate B at the time, just because they haven't really played each other. I don't know of any rumors of them playing well against Intermediate B teams in scrims. I don't actually know if teams scrim each other that much in between divisions. I'm sure as playoffs are going to get closer, that's going to stop a little bit more, and you might actually see some sub-divisional scrims in terms of Intermediate A and B. So I'm not really expecting too much out of CDC. However, they did recently steal Pichu and Wiz away from DKE, which also doesn't bode well for DKE and their chances of actually pulling off a miracle and making the playoffs at this point. Because those were 2 of their stronger players, as well as the fact that they just lost Null as of recording this, I think. Actually, no, they lost him yesterday? Whatever, he retired. And those 3 players in particular would rather stand out, in my opinion. They do still have Haishan, and they have Elf. I believe Caloric Acid is still there, so they still have some good pieces, as well as Kit. I don't know why I forgot him. He's the manager, after all, and he's had some really good moments, depending on who they're facing. I think the tougher opponents have known to shut down his anti-nades. So I'm not entirely sure where to place CDC, so I'm just kind of like placing them dead center. I think they can take a game off of like Botburgers, for example. It really depends. I mean, they still have like Surmi managing, for example, I think, unless he stepped down. No, I'm thinking of Master Dempsey stepped down. We'll get to that in Intermediate B. But so they do still have that. I think Double Cap definitely has the potential to make a run for the top, honestly, anywhere in the top 3. Just based off of the games they have, they do have some rather tough opponents. I mean, they have Botburgers, and I'm expecting them to, at the very least, 3-1. I think Botburgers has the potential to take some maps. I don't know if they have the potential to take any games themselves. But for the most part, I think Double Cap and CDC have potential. I think Double Cap maybe has more potential at this point, because when I first made these graphs, CDC hadn't quite lost everyone they did yet. I think they had just lost Vantage, or whoever left first. But that being said, I mean, they still have a pretty good record. I mean, 4-3 at this point in the season is a decent place to be. If they can win 2 games out of the 3, they're pretty much locked up. Especially, like I said, if they can beat Botburgers, they're essentially locked up, because that's the one team they really have to worry about deposing them at this point in time. If they can win that, they could probably keep their third place spot, if not climb back up to first place. I mean, at one point they were the #1 team in Intermediate, period. So there is that potential. Moving down to the bottom two, though, these two guys are going to have a rough time, these two teams. Because Botburgers, essentially, their win condition is a little bit easier. If they can beat Double Cap and CDC, they're putting themselves in a really good position to possibly tie in match differential, and depending on how dominantly they can win those games, they can possibly beat out in map differential, or at the very least tie one of them, because they really just need to beat out one of these teams. These two, as far as I'm concerned, are probably going to be in the 3rd and 4th place spots, based on my predictions. So you do have the potential there for Botburgers to slide their way in and just knock out one of the lower of those two teams. And then in sort of the reverse, the alternate reality, and you'll notice some of these, like I said earlier in the novice segment, like the map differential for these games, these predicted games, aren't going to be the exact same, because say I'm expecting, like, I'll use an example for advanced that you see in a little bit. For like Easy Clap, I'm just expecting them to win 3-0 for most of their games, so like if the reverse happens and they just like throw, I'm still expecting that match to go to like a map 5 if the other team somehow wins, right? So that sort of thing. But the reverse can be true as well. If it's like, if I'm expecting a game to go like, you can see in the 9th game here for Intermediate A, Papega versus DC. DC does look rather good. Depending on if Papega really comes in hot, they could just win 3-0, but I'm also expecting DC to have some sort of momentum as well. They have been collecting players mostly from old Shanghai players at this point, and they have been looking rather good, so I'm expecting that game, I'm hoping that game to go to a map 5 to prove that DC is actually on the rise. And sort of the reverse of that is, like, obviously if I think Papega is going to win in a close map 5, I think DC on the opposite side of the spectrum could pretty easily take out in a map 5 as well. I don't think it'll go any sooner than that, and that's just like one example of the reverse. And actually, interestingly enough, if you look at these standings for the reversed predictions, pretty much everything is the same, other than CDC and DC jump up to the 1st and 2nd place spots, and then Papega and Vitalize move down to the danger zone. And Botburgers actually does tie them up, but they have a worse map differential. Of course, that map differential is going to come in seriously handy when you're like just on the precipice of making or breaking the playoffs. But even then, like, the bottom two still remain. DKE, unfortunately, having the better record in these reverse predictions, still have no hope at that point. So, like, they really would need to win out, like, 3-0 or, like, 3-1 all of their games. If they start 3-2ing, I'm not sure they'll have the map differential to stand up to the other mid-table teams if they actually manage to get that far. And with that, we'll move over to Intermediate B, and this one I think is going to be rather interesting. There's a lot of potential here, aside from probably Yoink, to make a serious run for the playoffs. However, you will see in the reversed predictions final standings chart that still is a possibility of Yoink actually making it into the playoffs, and that's something that I was actually really happy about, is that looking at every single division that actually has like a playoff cutoff, actually even novice in terms of the top 4, there's not a single team that's completely out of the running yet. Now, some of these runs would have to be spectacular in order to actually make it to the playoffs, and it's going to be a hell of a ride to get there if these teams actually want to make it. You know, I think, but it will be possible still. This is actually one of those cases, whereas in Intermediate A, there wasn't really anyone that was officially locked up into playoffs. Intermediate B and Advanced both have one team that is. Shanghai, of course, having such a good record at this point. The only team they lost to was Powerhouse when they were starting to catch on fire and starting to prove at the time that they were one of the better intermediate teams. However, unfortunately, they've recently kind of gotten mentally boomed and just started complaining about everything, getting extremely tilted mid-match, and that led to quite a few losses and kind of bumped them down into the standings a little bit. Now they're basically fighting out for 2nd place with Wait What, mostly just because their first couple weeks were so on fire. Aside from like those few losses they had to they lost to High Society and who else? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. You could go back into the schedule and look at it for yourself. But yeah, anyways, so Shanghai is locked up. Now, of course, they can lose that 1st place seed if they really tried to throw. However, even that with a 6-4 record, that's still potentially really, really good. I'm personally not expecting Shanghai to lose anymore. However, I think the overcharge match could be rather close. With the up-and-coming Powerhouse match, I originally said 3-1. I could possibly even see 3-0 just because Powerhouse is kind of in shambles right now. Depends really on how much Stewie pulls that team together. They could possibly retain some of their former glory. I don't think they lost that many players, just like losing Kef, and the fact that the players that they have had over the past couple of weeks have been performing a lot less, just because of their mentality. So who knows, maybe they could pull out a win and, you know, pull up to the first place spot yet again that they had, I think, briefly. Or did they ever have that? I think at one point they did have first place in Intermediate, or at least in Intermediate B. So they're definitely close enough where they can get there. I mean, there's 3 games left, and they're only 2 spots behind Shanghai, and one of those games is against Shanghai, so maybe they could possibly tie up with Shanghai, depending on if, you know, Wait What or Overcharge can actually beat Shanghai as well, and tie that up as well. Of course, Wait What is also going to be fighting for that first place spot. They are just a little bit behind. In terms of my actual predictions, I'm expecting Overcharge to do rather well. I'm expecting High Society to do possibly pretty well. High Society is sort of a weird case for me to predict, just because they beat Powerhouse, but I also don't exactly know how much of that was Powerhouse just tilting and High Society, like, have they actually gotten better? Have they actually changed? Or are they still like the solidly mid-table team that they've always been? You know, they've always been like decent, not great. And if that's the case, I could easily see them losing against Wait What. I could easily see them losing against Yoink, possibly, and I would definitely see them losing against Overcharge, at least. That's what I predicted normally. And Overcharge, if High Society is still sort of like the mid-table team I'm expecting, I'd expect Overcharge to just like 3-0 them. Because Overcharged is in for a ride, because the first 4 weeks for them was definitely incredibly rough, to say the least. They unfortunately got really unlucky, despite having a good roster for a good amount of those losses as well. Like, from week 3 onwards, I'd say that the roster wasn't bad. They were just facing really tough opponents, and possibly tilted for some of those matches. I think the High Society match in the first half of the season or whatever, they definitely could have won that, but they just kind of like tilted in the last map. Also Skiller, but you know, that's in the past. They definitely have looked incredible as of late. I believe they've won the last 2 games that they've played, so they're definitely riding on momentum. And this new version 4, I think it is, of Overcharge definitely has the potential to possibly squeeze their way into playoffs, but it is going to be really tough for them. Like, they're probably going to have to win all 3 of their remaining games, which is possible. You know, I think, like I said, if High Society is still just like mid-table and Powerhouse just tilted off the face of the planet, then I could see Overcharge easily winning that game. I'm expecting them to beat Yoink in, not next week, because that's just this upcoming weekend, just because that's only advanced, but in 2 weeks from now when they play their 8th game, I'm expecting them to just 3-0 Yoink, because Yoink seems to have issues with playing niche comps and not quite knowing when to swap off. Like, they're kind of like Goats Only, except Goats Only usually learns when to swap off. I don't know. It's fun to watch, but it's also kind of painful when they just kind of flop, you know, because they have really good players, but they don't have that cohesion that some of the better teams in their division do. Unfortunately, a lot of the teams in their division have that kind of cohesion, and Overcharge is starting to get there. I personally would love to see Overcharge make it into the playoffs, despite neither of my brackets, either my actual predicted bracket or the reversed one, have me expecting them to get there. I would personally love to see it. You know, unfortunately, they do have a pretty high stress schedule for the time being. Like, Overcharge, if they want to make it into the playoffs, they really can't lose a game. Like, they just have to win absolutely everything. Whereas everyone else, like, the goal here for especially the top 4, well, really like 2, 3, and 4, because again, Shanghai is just locked into it. You want to try and get up to 6 wins if possible. That's sort of like the safe zone at this point. Different divisions have different bars set as to like where you're more safe than others, and maybe after this upcoming weekend, I believe some teams will start to drop out of playoff run. You know, especially if like Yoink loses against Overcharge. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to be capable of getting out there. I'll have to worry about the math afterwards, and I'm certainly not going to do another weekly segment. I'll probably do a weekly segment, possibly with some guests, trying to predict the actual playoff brackets once those are established after week 12, when we have all 10 games for everyone played. But yeah, that's basically all I have for Intermediate B. Everything else is kind of already spelled out for you. So with that, we'll move over to the final division, which I think this one has the most potential for interesting conclusions, dare I say. Because this one has so many more teams, and the structure of how we're doing the playoffs is a little bit different. We're not just taking the top 4 teams, we're taking I believe last I checked it was the top team from each conference, because we do have those like subdivision conference things that basically are just scheduling purposes. But because of these scheduling purposes, we're taking the top team from each conference, and then we're just taking the next 4 teams on top of that. So currently, Easy Clap and Flock are in Conference A and B respectively, or possibly it's B and A, I forget, but they're in different conferences, and I'm personally expecting them to be the top 2 teams, so that by itself would be pretty easy, just to place the top 6, or the 6 that get into the playoffs rather. Currently, I'm expecting, as you can see in the far right corner, I'm expecting Guangzhou and Goats Only to drop out of playoff contention, possibly Hangzhou peeking in, and you will see that actually Hangzhou and Guangzhou, in my predicted final standings, will have the same match differential as well as map differential, but in this case I have, I believe I have Hangzhou, yeah, in game 10, I have Hangzhou winning 3-1, and in the first couple weeks of the season, Hangzhou 3-0'd Guangzhou, so already their head-to-head is a lot better. So at the very least, there is a chance for every single team at this point still. Like, no team is left out in terms of, like, not being able to get there. But, of course, it's going to be an uphill battle, especially with some of these bottom-performing teams. Hangzhou, of course, just rebuilding now with Juice. And he seems to have an idea of what he wants to do, and he's already purged the team of some of the less cooperative elements, shall we say. And he seems to have an idea of what's going on in terms of like scrims. If you watch the previous advanced segment that we've already recorded, by the time I'm recording this, they seem to be doing pretty decent in scrims, so that's a good sign. But they're gonna need sort of a miracle to pull it out. Like, they're basically gonna need to win the rest of the season if they want to have a chance. But that being said, they actually could just win like one more game and still have a chance, as you can see in my predicted standings. My guess is that for the most part the top 5 spots are pretty much locked in. Like, I could see some moving around in terms of, like, I'm expecting Easy Clap to just go 10-0. I don't think they can throw hard enough to actually lose a game at this point. Like, Flock was really the only chance. I know Zero and Flush were like, oh, we got this. No, you don't, guys. I'm sorry. Like, I'm gonna have to see it to believe it, because last time, despite Melon throwing and you were playing a 5v6 for basically the entire game, you didn't really do much outside of that. Like, you guys kind of boomed yourselves, and on top of that, the Flushed Friends group, the former Chengdu Chads, don't really have a good history against teams that are just like better than them in terms of skill or coordination. And I mean, Easy Clap is an insane amount of skill, and of course Flushed has a lot of explosive potential as well, but I don't know if you have the potential to actually gain the momentum enough to pull out a win against Easy Clap of all teams, unless they literally hand it to you on a silver platter, unless they're like, oh hey guys, you're our friends, let's just throw, in which case that would be sad. Because would that really be a win? I mean, technically yes, but like, what does that say about your team that you need it handed to you on a silver platter? So yeah, anyways, I'm expecting, for the most part, Flush to go 2-2 out of the remaining couple games, especially because the Flock coming up. I know Zero is extremely confident that, like, we're going to 3-0 the Flock. I think that game's going to be a lot closer than what he might be expecting. I'm hoping for a map 5, of course, just as a spectator. I love to see map 5s. It's really entertaining. Granted, as like a caster or like a recorder or streamer, it's really tiring, but it's also really fun, you know, in hindsight. On top of that, I don't really see too many other teams to contest the Flock, like possibly Newt, possibly Flushed. I'm expecting those games to go to map 5 realistically, and I'm expecting the Flock to come out on top, especially because Newt lost to them in a map 5 before, when they had players like Ultra, like Baz, and now they're on Flushed. And of course, that does mean that there's more firepower for Flushed. But I don't know. Flock just has looked good. You know, they're not explosive. They don't have the highest peak in the league, but they're pretty solid. I'm just expecting them to go 9-1. I could possibly see like 8-2 if Flushed pulls out a win. But for the most part, like the top 3 teams in particular, they're pretty darn safe. Like Flushed would have to pull off an immaculate amount of throwing to actually fall out of playoff contention at this point. And I mean, that would be kind of sadistically hilarious, but I'd also be sad because I like to see those players play, and I think all of them are playoff caliber at the very least. You know, possibly even, not possibly even, but like definitely grand finals caliber. I think an Easy Clap versus Flushed final would be pretty darn epic, to say the least, depending on how the brackets work out, although I believe Easy Clap, the way it's going, are going to be able to pick their opponents, and I don't know if they'd want to play Flushed in the semis as opposed to the grand finals, potentially. And then you have the like middle tier teams like Newt and Hanamura. I'm expecting Hanamura to go, I believe, 2-2. Yeah, 2-2. Because the Easy Clap game again, I could see him taking a map once again, but that's going to be a rough match. Like, I don't think they have what it takes to beat out Easy Clap. And then versus Flushed, I would love to see that game to go to a map 5, and I actually think it's possible this time around. I think I predicted that the last time they faced as well. And Hanamura actually looks pretty good. It depends on the amount of momentum Flushed establishes at first, and if Hanamura has the teamwork and structure to actually stop that and slow the pace of the game down to their level. Because that's basically what happened last season during the Advanced Grand Finals when Crush just like stopped Chengdu and Ishtrax and just completely dictated the pace of the game. And that's basically my big fear for Flushed. But even with that fear, like I said, they'd have to do an insane amount of throwing and basically lose out for the rest of the season. Whereas the interesting part for Advanced really comes in with the bottom 3 teams, because all 3 of them are in serious trouble. Like, technically Hanamura is there as well with their match differential currently, but I mean, they're on the rise. They have quite a few more winnable games. Like, I'm really not expecting Guangzhou to put up that much of a fight against Hanamura, because Hanamura's looked really good as of late. Same thing with Goats Only. Like, I still don't know how Goats Only won the first time around, because, like, Hanamura played better that game, but they just threw harder, like, at crucial moments, and I don't think that's going to happen this time around. They've legitimately looked good, whereas Ghost Only has never really gotten their stuff together. They do have some members like Term, like I believe Vermilion was traded, and I think Stanley recently went over there as well. So they do have some good pieces, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Especially Hanamura's support line is pretty freaking cracked at this point. Or at the very least Pascal is, depending on occasion Astra can be underwhelming, but he can also have his like good moments if you can put him on the heroes that he's good at. So there's definitely a lot of potential there, especially for the bottom 4 teams, I'll just say, in general, although I'm expecting Hanamura to shoot up a little bit more in the standings, whereas I'm not entirely confident in the ability of the current bottom 3 teams to like win more games confidently. I'd love to see Hangzhou do it, because, you know, as such a known and beloved brand in the league at this point. I mean, granted, it's not the same thing. I mean, there's really only like, what, 2 people from the original 4 that came from this season, from last season into this season, and that's Chuggy and YOLOGod. Granted, those are 2 rather good players, especially YOLOGod being a pretty darn good off-tank. So, I don't know. I'd like to see them get a little bit of success. And actually, I predict them to barely squeeze in. Like, that would be incredible. And I think that would also be a huge amount of vindication for Juice if you watched his whole spiel from the Advanced segment for this week. Like, he definitely wants it. And Juice, if you're watching this, like, it's possible. You just gotta win like everything, or at least one game. And that one game should probably be against Guangzhou, if anyone else. Also, if you can beat Goats Only, that basically solidifies, because that would put Goats Only at 1-9, so you don't even have to worry about them in terms of the standings, because that's basically it for them. And then if you can beat like Goats Only and Guangzhou, like that pretty much solidifies it. You'd be 3-7 and not even have to worry about map differential at that point. And that's basically all I got. The last thing I do want to say for literally any team, especially Goats Only, because they happen to be up on the screen right now for me, but for any team, especially in the intermediate or advanced divisions, where like you're looking your team's like towards the bottom, towards that edge of like possibly making, possibly not making the playoffs, like no team is out of the running as of yet. And while your path might be harder to make it into playoffs, it is 100% possible. Is it probable? That's really up to you, as well as what happens with the other matches. You know, it might be more difficult, but it is possible. And we've had crazier playoff runs in the past. I mean, every single season up to this point, we've had at least one crazy-ass run with, like, Easy Clap Season 0, literally going from 8th place out of 8 to going through the entire gauntlet, which was a single control map, and then once they got to the 4th place team, which was Rio at the time, it was a full 3-map series, I think, of control. Might have been like a full actual series, though. And then they just like completely dominated Rio, got into the wild card, lost in the semis, but I mean, hey, they went from 8th place to 4th place in the postseason, so it can work. And then you have Platchat last season, in Season 1 in Novice, that went from 6th place out of 6, 1-9 in the regular season. Granted, everyone made the playoffs then, so like, of course, Novice this season is also going to have that possibility. But I mean, hey, the possibility is there. You just need to put in the work. That might change, like, you know, this time next week, when more teams have more statistics and more match wins. It might be a little bit more hard. There might be some teams that have lost when they really needed to win, and now they can't make the playoffs. But as of watching this, as of recording, no games have happened. No games are going to happen until 2 days after this, mostly just because it's advanced this weekend. So, yeah, have faith. I think that was the motto of the thing to take away from Juice's speech as well. Ironic. Anyways, that's all I've got. Hope you enjoyed the show. Peace now.